Do you feel the vibes?
What's up, YouTube? It's Carolina Calvin coming back to you with another video, and welcome to my NFL 2017 Week 14 game recap between the Carolina Panthers and the Minnesota Vikings. Carolina Panthers ended up picking up the win 31-24 on a last-minute touchdown by Jonathan Stewart. And there's some things I want to say about this game that I felt as though the Carolina run game against this defense was the most impressive thing. Yeah, people will see those big runs by Jonathan Stewart early in the game. They'll see the run by Cam Newton. But I think overall throughout the game, they had some, the average 4 to 5 yards a carry. Even Christian McCaffrey, when he did run it, he had some good gains. He didn't run it very much. They're trying to really limit his runs. They want him to be, kind of the hybrid receiver and run the ball. So he didn't have a bunch of carries. And even when Jonathan Stewart ran it, he had some good gains. Of course, the big game. But let's get into the numbers right quick. Starting with the Vikings, Case Keenum, 27-44, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. One of those picks wasn't his fault. It was thrown high, but it goes right through his receiver's hands. The receiver should have caught that. But it was thrown high, but, you got to help your quarterback out. The other was mostly because of the Panthers' pressure, and it's just the errant throws. It's underthrown, and Worley gets an easy pick. But a big chunk of his yards, I'm going to say about 140 to 150 of his yards, came in the fourth quarter. When the Panthers really went into a prevent defense, and they were able to really move the ball on them. Looking at Minnesota's rushing, McKinnon 7 carries, 46 yards. Case Keenum 5 carries, 40 yards. And Tavius Murray 9 carries for 14. So I think the Panthers did a good job against the running backs. They had that really one drive where the running backs were really able to get some yardage. Also Keenum, the pocket breaks down. There's no contain, so he ran for a couple of good scrambles. So that kind of skewed the numbers. But for the most part, the Minnesota running game wasn't that great, really outside of one drive from their running backs. Looking at Minnesota's receiving, Thielen, 6 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions, 64 yards. Kyle Rudolph, 3 receptions, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Treadwell, 2 receptions for 23. Wright, 2 receptions for 13. And Thielen should have had 2 touchdowns. He had 2 drops on the same goal line drive, where one he catches it, but he bobbles it when he hits the ground, so it goes up as an incompletion. The other one, he just outright drops it right there in the corner of the end zone. So, this is a catch they normally make. And that was something you saw with the Vikings, was just mistakes. Not only did they have 3 turnovers, but you also look at, there were some drops. Kyle Rudolph had a drop. I believe there were 5 drops in that game. Thielen had 2. Thielen had 2 of them. So, you saw some mistakes that they normally haven't been making all season. Coming into the game, they only had 4 drops coming into it. They had 5 in the game. So that definitely didn't help. Like I said, one of the drops led directly to an interception. Defensively, I felt as though the secondary, Xavier Rhodes was all over Funchess. Funchess did have a touchdown reception. He did have a couple other receptions. One wasn't even on Rhodes. The other one was a really nice throw and catch on the sideline. But that the touchdown grab was Cam creating with his legs, and a really nice throw to Funchess on a busted coverage where he was open in the back of he was open right at the 1 and easy run in and touchdown. Clearly, the Vikings really lost contain on that. So I felt as though the secondary for Minnesota was really good. Rhodes, we knew that. We knew Rose. I mean, Rose shut down Julio Jones. What do you think he was going to do to Devin Funchess for the most part when he was on him, whoever he was on? So I think that's where they really excelled. Surprising, the run defense. The run defense wasn't as good as they've been throughout the season. I mean, Carolina ran for over 200 yards. And yeah, you'll say the big chunk plays, but you got to stop those big chunk plays. And even then, without those chunk plays, the Panthers were getting 4 to 5 yards a carry regularly in the game, whenever they did run it. So that was the biggest surprise to me, was the run defense when they're one of the best in the league. Secondary, I thought, weren't too many throwing lanes for Cam. But it was just the run defense where you thought would have been a lot better. Also, the pressure. They didn't get a bunch of pressure on Cam Newton. Even when they did, he had times where he escaped it. I believe they only had 2 sacks. And last year, when the Panthers played the Vikings, Everson Griffin had 3 by himself. So I thought the pass rush and the run defense, the front didn't play as well as they've been playing all season. Yeah, they made tackles. They're going to go out there and make plays. It was just the Panthers did have success running the ball. The Panthers' protection held up for most of the game. So that came as a surprise to me. But the secondary for Minnesota was great. Going over to the Panthers, Cam Newton, 13 to 25, 137 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Now, the 1 pick, I wanted to talk about this for a second because I thought the commentators, well, mainly Tony Romo. I've been on Tony Romo. I thought he was a change of pace in terms of commentators, but he's terrible. He was terrible in this game, and that Cam interception. He said Cam threw the ball too high. Go look at that. Go look at that play again. It was to Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, it was thrown slightly high, but he acted as if it was the same kind of throw like Case Keenum had to the one receiver it was really high, but his receiver still had a chance to catch it. But it wasn't thrown high, and McCaffrey's a good receiver. He has good hands. He should have made that throw, and that led to an interception. So a lot of people that look at the interception stats, you have to watch the games. Christian McCaffrey just didn't catch the ball. The tip ball led to an interception. You can't even really blame Cam for that. But for the most part, wasn't a lot of windows in that Vikings secondary. Harrison Smith's back there. Xavier Rhodes is going to be on your best receiver and the one that Cam wants to target. The one thing I can say Cam didn't do, there were plays where Greg Olsen was open. That was on the wheel route to Fozzie Whitaker. Cam makes that throw. Fozzie Whitaker doesn't normally run those routes. And Greg Olsen is wide open in the middle of the field for an easy 12-yard reception. So he has to start looking Greg Olsen's way. I know Greg Olsen's been out, but he looks to be moving well. He got open on that play. He was open on a few other plays throughout the game. So yeah, he has to really look for Greg Olsen because you don't have a lot of talent at receiver. You got to use Fozzie Whitaker on a wheel route. Why wasn't that Christian McCaffrey? Just saying. Carolina rushing. Jonathan Stewart, 16 carries, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. So whenever I talk trash about him, he seems to have a good game. He had the long 60-yard carry at the beginning of the game with some really great blocking. And I thought, for the most part, the Panthers' offensive line, you could honestly get him the edge in terms of against this Vikings front. And coming to this game, you wouldn't expect that to happen. But the running game was good. Cam Newton, 11 carries, 70 yards. He had the big 62-yard carry near the end of the game, which set up the game-winning touchdown by Jonathan Stewart. And Cam, it was a nice read option. He had one man to beat, and he beat him. Just go watch that play again. Really good. If it would have been a couple years ago, Cam probably runs that in. But he ends up getting caught. It was a cornerback, so fair enough. Christian McCaffrey, 8 carries, 35 yards. I thought whenever he did run the ball, he had some success. He averaged 4.4 a carry. I think that's pretty good. And Russell Shepard, 1 carry for 8 yards. He did have that end around. So the Panthers ran it a total of 36 times, 216 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So that's a good day in terms of running the football. And that's easily the best rushing game a team has had against the Vikings all season, probably in the last 2 seasons. Looking at receiving, Devin Funchess, 3 receptions, 59 yards and a touchdown. Demir Bird, 5 receptions, 37 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 3 receptions, 18. Burson, 1 reception for 17. He had that one catch where I thought the dude almost broke his neck. He held on to it. It was a nice catch. And that's really it. Greg Olsen was only targeted once. Ed Dixon was only targeted once. They didn't throw the ball a lot. They only threw the ball a total of 25 times. And Cam completed a little bit over half of those at 13. Defensively, I thought the front played well. My problem is when they get that lead in the fourth. When this is why they've been giving up. You look at a lot of the games that they won, and they go into with a fourth quarter lead, and teams start to score points because they go into the stupid prevent defense. People know based on history, those do not work. Teams are willing to dink and dunk you down the field and hit you with a nice throw over the top. Right when they went to that prevent defense, the Vikings go right down the field and score. Some very poor tackling. Mike Adams is a bum. Kurt Coleman is a bum. These guys miss so many tackles. They're out of position so many times. They're so bad in space. Especially Mike Adams being an older player. He's just not good. Luke Kuechly had 14 tackles. He made some plays. He also had a sack. I thought Julius Peppers still finds ways to make plays, man. I believe he had 2 sacks in this game, I want to say. How many are they giving him looking at the numbers? Only giving him 1 sack. But, because that 1 sack, he didn't get it. But the Panthers had 6 sacks in this game. I thought whenever because, they would usually bring 5 guys. And usually whenever they brought 5 guys, they got pressure on the quarterback. That's where most of their sacks came from. And I hate when they go into this prevent defense. What you do is you send those guys. You got a good defensive line. Bring extra guys because it has worked. It's worked all season. You just go look at the numbers. When the Panthers blitz, they get pressure on the quarterback, force errant throws because your secondary isn't good enough. And they've been inconsistent in terms of their tackling and staying disciplined that you're going to have to rely heavily on the defensive front to get pressure. And if not, bring more guys. Bring a linebacker. Bring a corner, which they were doing. They brought Captain Munderland a lot of times. Most of the time when they blitzed, they either brought Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, or Captain Munderland. In the extra pressure, you get into a tight man defense. It forces that quarterback to hold the ball. Which allows your defensive guys up front to get to the quarterback. Seems really simple to me, and it's worked. It's nothing really exotic about it. No exotic blitzes. They kept it pretty obvious. It was essentially the same blitzes, but it worked because those guys were able to beat their man one-on-one. But quickly to get into team stats. Time possession, Carolina 31 minutes 18. They ran the ball 36 times. Minnesota 28 minutes 42 seconds. Total yards are about the same. Carolina 345. Minnesota 356. A lot of that came in the fourth quarter in terms of the passing yards. Third down efficiency, Carolina 5 of 15. Minnesota 7 of 15. So they were slightly better on third down. They were one of the better third down teams in football. Penalties, Carolina 6 penalties, 48 yards. Minnesota 2 penalties for 30. So, really not that bad in terms of penalties. It was the turnovers. Carolina had 1. Minnesota had 3. 1 was a fumble, which people didn't know what was going on in the field, but the ref didn't blow the whistle. Guy picks up, I believe it was Mike Adams. He picks up the football. The other was a complete underthrow by Case Keenum, led to an interception, and 1 was a drop pass, which it was thrown high. So turnovers you can definitely say that was the difference. I believe Carolina got 10 points off turnovers, to be exact. So you turn the ball over, and you let a team that's been very inconsistent offensively score points like that. It's gonna be tough to win, especially against a defense that you know can really cause a lot of havoc, especially with that defensive front. But looking into the next games, because of the injury to Carson Wentz, that NFC is looking very open. The Vikings have the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Carolina Panthers, I believe, have the Green Bay Packers. And Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Let me make sure. Yes, Carolina Panthers have the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers is coming back. So those are your two games for next week. Let me know what you think down in the comment section about this game. If you watched it on Rewind, it was a good game. It really went down to the wire. And that Cam Newton run, I was watching it. I was so hyped when he made that run, because you could see his face after that turnover. He was like, I'm gonna make a play on the next drive. He ends up making that play. But like I said, let me know what you think down in the comment section. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.